Yes, Mr. LaCasse?
LaCasse, Ward 2. First of all, I'd like a chronicle explanation how the billing went from $674,000 or something like that down to $175,000. That's about 75% reduction in the cost of the building. So what the last speaker just said is more than a $250,000 reduction. It's a $250,000 reduction because we just forgave the taxes. Then we turned around and gave them 75% of the building value away. What constituted giving an abatement of 75% of that building? Is it no roof, no windows, no doors, no heat? Or maybe the building should be just plain condemned? And there is a solution to having one person making these assessment solutions. There's what they call the Board of Adjusters, which you can set up as a town, a 3 or 5 member board. It's a Board of Assessors. They come up and they look at all the property and they debate it publicly, and then they have public input. And then you wouldn't have this problem. This was suggested a few years ago, but nobody wanted it. Now you got a big problem. But I would like to know the answer to how a building goes from 100% down to less than a quarter of it.
Councilor Zulu?
Would it be appropriate for Mr. Lassard to answer these questions? I mean, the public does have the right to know.
Well, I'll go to legal counsel first.
Again, I don't think that that's appropriate at this point in time for the sole reason that, again, the city assessor answers to the city manager, and I don't think it would be proper to use this venue to question the performance of the city assessor, because it's not the role of the council nor really the public to determine his performance. It's really left with the city manager. So I'm really concerned about the non-interference provision of the charter. If we do allow questions as to why this was done and the criteria for it.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to follow up on that. This is supposed to be a public meeting, and this is supposed to be public knowledge. So why can't I get an answer to that question?
I think the issue...
It has nothing to do with the city council. I am asking the question of the city assessor.
Well, the fact that someone asks a question does not entitle them to an answer. You know, there's no legal obligation under the truth of the matter is there's no legal obligation for a city official to answer that question.
And Mrs. Mayor, could I make that a 91A request?
Yes, but I think what legal counsel is trying to do is the legal counsel works for the benefit of the city council as well as the city. In this case, we're having a city council meeting, and he's trying to guide us with regard to the non-interference clause, which you well, wait a minute, I'll get to it, which you well know, any interference by any member of the council would require us to vacate our seat if it was found to be true. That's what legal counsel is trying to do tonight to ensure that we don't go awry of that section of our charter. As far as right-to-know requests on all of these documents that Mr. Tangway has already said is public information, we can have the city manager talk about that process if you would like tonight, or you can submit the right-to-know, but that can't be done at this meeting.
Why can't it be done at this meeting? This is a public meeting, is it not? And this is public
It's not
information.
the process that is followed. For
My understanding is state law doesn't necessarily mean it has to be done at a specific time. This is a public meeting, and I'm asking a legitimate question.
and I gave you an answer. We're here tonight to discuss the whole process. I understand people are upset, and they have every right to be. There is clearly something wrong with the process.
And I do have a problem with the city.
Wait, please. I'm trying to respond to your concerns.
Okay. But I do have an issue.
It was important whether it was important for everybody to have the same foundation of information before we look to how the process should be modified, because it's clearly not what we want.
Well, I
So,
got two questions.
the process for right-to-know requests, the city manager can talk about that. You can make that request to the city clerk or the administrative assistant. But we're here to talk about this process and try to understand how we can make the process better. And I understand people are upset, so please continue.
And I have a little bit of a disagreement about you not interfering with the assessor's job. Because at the end of the year, if I'm not mistaken, when I was on the city council, we had to sign a paper that said, all of these assessments are correct. Because you have a duty, a fiduciary duty, to make sure everything in this city is proper. So therefore, you should have the proper reasons to ask him any question you want. You're not interfering with his job. You're looking out for the welfare and money of the city.
I understand that.
Thank you.
That's why we're trying to look at the process.